Ryan Pike here, still in scenic Las Vegas, Nevada, in the aftermath of the 2024 NHL Draft, dealing with some travel-related headaches. But I thought I'd throw together a video to provide a quick rundown of what the Flames did at the event. The draft was Friday and Saturday at the Sphere. By all counts, in the building, just a beautiful use of the space. Hopefully, came away really nice on TV because I think they hit it out of the park. But the Flames, they went into the weekend with 9 selections. There was a lot of talk where they trade them for picks, where they trade them for players, where they move up, where they move down. Ultimately, they ended up moving down once in the fourth round, and they ended up making 10 picks over the weekend. So let's just go through the 10 picks, and I'll give you my thoughts on each one. First of all, 9th overall, they select from the Saginaw Spirit, the Memorial Cup champions, defenseman Zan Perek. What can you say? Zan Perek was the best defenseman in Canadian Major Junior Hockey this year. He can flat out score. He was the only OHL defenseman to have more points than Flames prospect Hunter Brzustevich. He can skate, he can move, he can do a lot of things with the puck. Defensive game is not his bread and butter. He's not bad at it, but he's going to need to learn some of the nuances as a pro. But if you're hoping, man, they need guys that can, dictate a power play, really provide a tempo for offense and not be as sort of, all over the place as some of the Flames blue liners have been in the past. Perek, he's got the skill ceiling that, the scouts are really excited about him, and a lot of people around hockey are really excited about him. So Zan Perek, 9th overall, very good pick. The Flames, by several reports, had kicked tires on moving up to 6th overall to try to get TJ Kinla. The cost that they were asked to pay was too much for their blood, and so they, quote unquote, settled for Zan Perek. And I figure if you're going, oh damn, gotta grit your teeth and draft the best CHL defenseman currently playing, I think you have worse problems in your life than that. So that's what they did. 28th overall, with the selection they acquired from Vancouver in the Alliance Lindholm trade, the Flames select from the USHL's Muskegon Lumberjacks winger Matvei Greedon. Greedon is a offensive-minded winger currently committed to the University of Michigan for the coming season. He can just score. He led the USHL in scoring and points. Led in assists, led in points. I think he was second or third. He was third or fourth in goals, and the 3 guys ahead of him were all guys who were older. He's been in North America for a couple of years. He's originally from Russia, but came over a couple of years ago to play in the USHL because he wanted to try to make it to the NHL. And I think he's in a good position. He's, I would argue, a little more of a project than Perek is. He's going to college, so potentially that's a bit of a longer development curve. But also, he's very good offensively. His defensive game needs a bit of work. So you got the time to do it. So I think he's trending well, and I think he's got a lot of the tools that they like. Great passer, great shot, and really good offensive instincts, really adapted to the North American game. So now it's a question, can he continue to adapt? But, he's the kind of player that, based on what he's done so far, I think they have a lot of confidence in his ability to figure it out. All right, second round, 41st overall, the Flames' own pick. They select, a bit of a surprise, considering that I don't think a lot of folks thought he'd still be around at 41. Medicine Hat Tigers forward Andrew Basa. Basa's a Calgary kid, grew up in Calgary, wears number 34 because he loved Mika Kiprasov. Played for the Medicine Hat Tigers this year, last couple years, and he was the kind of guy that scouts would go to Tigers games to watch Caden Lindstrom, who went 4th overall. And Caden Lindstrom's a guy that you're going to circle his games on the calendar and go, we're going to go watch that guy. He's really good. But I think a lot of scouts came away, speaking as someone who did the same thing, came away from games where you went to go watch Lindstrom going, man, that Basa kid's really good. Really good tempo, really good pace to his game, battles, makes life really difficult for the other team. He's one of those guys that, he works really hard, and that elevates every other part of his game, and I would argue elevates every other part of his teammates' games too. So really, really good pick. Slots in really nicely in the Flame system, and I think provides them with sort of a few added elements offensively, some grit, some tenacity, and just some added skill that will really allow them to have a more dynamic forward group going forward. At 62nd overall, with the second rounder acquired from Dallas in the Chris Tanev trade, the Flames select winger Jacob Battaglia from the Ontario Hockey League's Kingston Frontenacs. Battaglia, another battler, another winger, good size, good speed, good everything, and he's the kind of guy who has a lot of tenacity to his game. And he's kind of a bulldog. There's been a lot of different phraseologies to describe how hard he is to play against, but he's one of those guys who works really hard and battles and tries to make life difficult in the other team. And they really liked him in Kingston this year, and I think the scouts in the OHL thought really highly of him. He is of no relation to longtime former NHLer Bates Battaglia. It's a coincidence, even though it's not a very common name, but again, he's another guy, kind of, him and Basa, I think, add a really nice mix of skill, size, and hard to play against this, and I think that'll provide a lot of added elements and nuances to the group. In the third round, with the Flames' own pick, at 74th overall, they select defenseman Henry Muse from the Ottawa 67s. Muse is another guy that I think few onlookers were a little bit surprised was still around at 74. Early in the season, he was seen as a potential first or second rounder. He's slid a little bit, but I think it's mostly, you'll hear this phrase a lot from folks who looked at this year's draft class. And I think Todd Button mentioned it too in his comments to the media. I think originally folks didn't think this was a very deep draft class, and then as the year went on, I think scouts became a little bit more jazzed about the quality of players who were available. And some guys just had really good second halves of the season, forced some guys like Muse a little bit down the rankings. But Muse, good defenseman, got some size, plays the puck well, good offensive instincts, good offensive numbers with the 67s, played for Team Canada at the U18s and at the Holinkas, played a big role, point per game at each of those events. So he's one of those guys that, again, kind of like Perek, maybe not as skilled as Perek, but has the instincts, has the ability to play with the puck and play smart and do smart things. He might be a little bit more well-rounded than Perek, a little bit better defensively, not as good offensively, but again, another high-ceiling defenseman who brings a lot of skill and smarts to his game. Next up, at 84th overall, with a third rounder the Flames obtained from Vegas in the Noah Hanifin trade, the Flames select goaltender Kirill Zarubin from Russia. He had a weird year. He started off, so he plays for a team called AKM Tula, and which is one of the academies in Russia. So in Russian junior hockey, they have a bunch of teams, and they play in a couple of different divisions. And so the AKM Tula has a junior team and a senior team in their academy system. So he started the year in the junior team, which isn't as good, and his numbers kind of weren't great. He tried real hard, obviously, but just the results weren't there. The team won 7 games all year. He was in net for 4 of them. But he played well enough that he was able to earn a promotion midway through the season. I forget how far, but midway through the season to their senior academy team. And as a result, his numbers, boom, just jumped. Played behind a slightly better team, 1.99 goals against average, 944 save percentage, 5 shutouts. Really, really good. And so there's a lot of folks, Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff is one of them, who think he could be an NHL goaltender. He's Russian, he's a goalie, might take a little while. He's still committed to AKM for next season, and then we'll see. But he's another one of those guys. I think you look at him and you look at Yegor Yegorov, who the Flames picked last year, and you go, okay, there's some development that needs to happen there, but you can sort of look at the results so far and go, okay, I can kind of see why they do that. So, you're not going to see Zarubin anytime soon, but he's one of those guys that I think you look at the potential and you go, okay. And, in our Slack on Flames Nation, Shane Stevenson joked that, if you look at some of the goaltending picks the Flames have made in recent years, Dustin Wolf in the 7th round, Arseny Sergeyev in the 7th round, and so on, I think the Flames have, and especially Jordan Siglet, have earned a bit of trust with the fan base in terms of, he thinks this late round goalie is good. Well, his last few bets have been pretty decent, so I think they have a willingness to sort of see how it goes. So, we'll see. In the 4th round, with the Flames' own pick, at 106th overall, they grab a double overager from the Cobourg Cougars in the OJHL. Forward Trevor Hoskin, he's been listed both as a winger and a center, depending where you look. He's a little of both. 2004 birthday, this is his 3rd year of draft eligibility, and he was the leading scorer and most valuable player in the OJHL. So, bit of a late bloomer, got some size, got some skill. He scored over 100 points this year. There's something there, but I think he's a bit of a project considering how much of a late bloomer he is. He'll be headed to Niagara University in the fall, and so that gives you an idea that he'll probably spend a couple years in college and they'll see how he develops. But he's a guy who can score, and if you're looking for bets in the fourth round and later, you look for guys that have elements that could project and potential that could project, and they like Hoskin based on that potential. So we'll see how he goes. Okay, so at this point, the Flames had a fourth rounder from the Elias Lindholm trade. The Flames got New Jersey's fourth in the Elias Lindholm trade from Vancouver. And so with this pick, 107, they traded with Philadelphia, and the Flames got 2 draft picks. The first of them was in the 6th round, 150th overall, and with that pick from the Philadelphia Flyers, they selected from the Mississauga Steelheads, Luke Misa, who a lot of people are very enthusiastic about. He's listed as a center, but he's 5'10", and 170 pounds. So maybe he might not be a center going forward. Maybe he might just be a winger. But he's undersized, but he's got a ton of skill, a ton of speed, and he uses it really well. He's the older brother of Michael Misa, who got exceptional stats from Hockey Canada a couple years ago and entered the OHL as a 15-year-old. Misa, fast, smart, skilled. I think at 150th overall, you look at this and you go, that's you don't want to say it's necessarily an Andre Mangiapane level roll of the dice, but if you look at the numbers and you look at sort of the things that the Flames liked about Mangiapane and the things that managed to project about Mangiapane, I think you go, okay, I can see why they do that. And at this point, if you get somebody who's over a point a game at his age and at his skill level, I think it's definitely someone you want to look at grabbing. So Misa, 150. Next up, with the Flames' own 6th round pick, 170th overall, they go to the Western Hockey League's Prince George Cougars and select 6'6", 205-pound center Hunter Lang. Lang is the son of former farmhand Quentin Lang, who is a coach in, I believe, Kelowna or Prince George. He's coaching, though. And Lang is big. He's got some potential. He played in the Rink Academy with Jerome McGinley, and so he kind of knows Jerome McGinley, and McGinley knows his family. And it's a late round bet, and you go big. Sometimes the tendency late round, you go overagers, you go big guys, you go goalies, you go small guys with crazy point numbers. 5th round, they got Misa, they're a small guy with crazy points numbers. Here they go a little bit more traditional. They go big dude who could project, and he hasn't played a ton in the Western League. He's only played 1 full season, and so there could be untapped potential there. And in the 6th round, you're basically just rolling this potential, and you could do worse than big players who've shown a little bit in the Western League. And finally, the 10th and final pick is the other pick they received from trading down with Philadelphia. 177th overall in the 6th round, the Flames select Everett Silvertips defenseman Eric Jameson. This is his 2nd year in the draft. 6'3", 200 pounds, shutdown guy, big physical. You're hoping maybe you can get a bit more offensive output out of him, although his offensive numbers have trended up since he entered the Western League. But again, you have those offensive-minded guys in the draft on the blue line, your Perek, your Henry Muse, and now here's the yin to their yang. He's the sort of, I think, long-term might be a complementary piece. Big physical defensive instincts, maybe there's more there. But again, you kind of need those guys to fill out your system, and you need those guys to fill out your team. And in the 6th and 7th rounds, if you can find guys who can play pro games, you're probably doing okay. So, yeah. Overall, I'd say the Flames did a pretty good job. They did 10 picks, 9 of them they selected out of North America, skaters out of North America. The other guy is a Russian goalie. They're all going to be playing in North America next year outside of the goalie. And you're looking at a bunch of guys that have potential. I mean, if you look up and down, they didn't really seem to emphasize size over skill. They seemed to, much like last year, try to find as much skill and size in the same combination. And, unlike last year, last year they didn't pick anybody who was under 6 foot. This time they go a little small with Misa, and, they seem to not shy away from rolling the dice on specific types of attributes. So overall, I think it's a perfectly nice bit of work by the Flames scouting staff. It really adds a lot of depth to their prospect base, especially on the blue line. If you look at some of the names that they've added this year, Brustevich is going to be something. I don't know what, but he's going to be something. Grushnikov adds a nice physical element. And then you add Perek, you add Muse, and then you look at all the forwards they added who have some potential. So, there's a lot to like about this. Obviously, until they play any pro games, it's really hard to judge. And I think the old saying goes, you judge drafts with calendars rather than stopwatches. But, on the first blush, looking at what the Flames need to accomplish in terms of just making a lot of picks and filling out their prospect base and not really stepping on any rakes, not having any self-inflicted wounds, but just doing the best thing they could to add elements to their farm system that they don't have. I think they did a very good job. So we'll see how it ages over time, but for 48 hours after the draft, I think it looks like a lot of good work, and the Flames and their scouting group should be pretty proud of what they're able to accomplish.